iron legacy where history lives. In 1796, Europe was engulfed in political and military chaos. The French Revolution had disrupted the balance of power on the continent, sparking a series of conflicts known as the French Revolutionary Wars. The European monarchies, fearing the spread of revolutionary ideals, joined forces in what was called the First Coalition, an alliance led by the Austrian Empire and the Kingdom of Sardinia, determined to contain the French threat. While the main front remained along France's eastern borders, a new front emerged in northern Italy. At the time, Italy was a fragmented collection of states contested by foreign powers. The Italian campaign represented a strategic opportunity for France. If successful, it could weaken the Austrian Empire, open new territories, and consolidate revolutionary power in the Mediterranean. In early 1796, a young and ambitious general, Napoleon Bonaparte, was appointed to lead the campaign in northern Italy. At just 26 years old, Napoleon was virtually unknown on the European military stage, but his tactical skills would soon become evident. He viewed the Italian campaign not only as a military mission, but also as a chance to build his reputation and influence French politics, which was constantly shifting. Napoleon's objectives were clear: advance rapidly, defeat the Austrian and Sardinian forces, and transform Italy into a base of French power. To achieve this, he would have to face larger and better equipped armies, as well as overcome complex logistics and a lack of supplies. However, he had one advantage: his ability to maneuver swiftly and to maximize the motivation of his soldiers, creating a strong sense of collective mission. The political and military context of 1796 presented immense challenges for Napoleon, but also a unique opportunity. He did not merely aim to win battles. He sought to transform the war in Italy into a stepping stone for his own future and that of revolutionary France. This combination of political ambition and military genius would be crucial in the events that culminated in the Battle of Castiglione. The Italian campaign began with a series of swift victories for Napoleon. He understood that the key to success was not just defeating the Austrians in individual battles, but rather destabilizing their entire military structure. Within weeks, Napoleon managed to break through the Austrian lines at Lodi and Rivoli, demonstrating a new kind of military strategy based on speed and surprise. For him, continuous offense and mobility were essential elements of his approach. This approach became known as maneuver warfare, a military strategy that emphasizes rapid movements and coordinated attacks to disorient the enemy, rather than confronting them directly in prolonged and exhausting battles. As the Austrian armies attempted to regroup, Napoleon quickly shifted direction, directing his forces towards vulnerable targets, allowing him to maintain the initiative throughout the campaign. In contrast, the Austrian commander Dagobert Wurmser faced significant difficulties. Despite having a superior number of troops, Wurmser struggled to anticipate Napoleon's movements, as the French general often split his forces to strike different points simultaneously, confusing the Austrians and forcing them to retreat. Napoleon's superiority lay not only in his tactics, but also in his ability to motivate the troops. His soldiers, though poorly paid and often ill-equipped, were driven by the promise of glory, plunder, and rewards. Napoleon knew he had to keep morale high, and to achieve this, he frequently visited the camps and spoke directly to his men, fostering an almost personal connection with his soldiers. In July 1796, Wurmser launched a surprise counteroffensive, gathering his forces to break the French siege in northern Italy. Napoleon, however, quickly recognized the movement and ordered a strategic withdrawal to consolidate his lines around the city of Castiglione, preparing the ground for the decisive confrontation. The rapid concentration of French troops at Castiglione was crucial for balancing the forces, a maneuver that marked the beginning of events leading to the battle. Napoleon's maneuvers before Castiglione not only shaped the battlefield, but also defined the narrative of the campaign. His ability to move troops swiftly, maintain the initiative, and confuse the enemy set the stage for a clash where both the fate of the campaign and Napoleon's reputation would be at stake. The concentration of French forces at Castiglione was a risky but strategic decision. Napoleon knew he needed to organize his troops quickly, as Wurmser's forces were larger and advancing rapidly, With a sense of urgency, Napoleon ordered his officers to gather the dispersed regiments, preparing a defense in depth to face the imminent attack. Napoleon's choice of terrain was crucial. He positioned his forces on an elevated hill north of the small town of Castiglione. This position allowed the French troops a broader view of the battlefield, facilitating coordination among the regiments. Additionally, the high ground offered a defensive advantage, making it difficult for the Austrian forces to launch rapid uphill attacks. As the soldiers prepared for combat, Napoleon delivered one of his characteristic speeches, emphasizing the importance of the battle for the campaign and appealing to the soldiers' sense of honor. "Men, victory here will give us Italy." This was Napoleon's message, projecting not just a military goal, but also a promise of conquest and glory. Napoleon believed in the use of psychological warfare, a technique that involved not only physical engagement with the enemy, but also mental impact, aimed at both intimidating opponents and energizing his own troops. To him, morale was as important as logistics. On the other side, Wurmser was also preparing for the clash. The Austrians were confident they could finally break the French line and regain the initiative in the campaign. However, logistical issues were beginning to surface. Supplies were insufficient, and communication lines were compromised due to the swift French maneuvers in the preceding days. As Wurmser advanced, Napoleon made last-minute adjustments to his defensive lines. He deployed reinforcements to protect vulnerable points and redistributed his artillery to maximize its impact against the Austrian attacking force. Napoleon's constant presence on the battlefield was decisive. He commanded up close, always in the midst of the action, showing the soldiers that he stood with them, which further boosted troop confidence. As the sun began to rise on the morning of August 5, 1796, both forces were positioned for the confrontation. On one side, the Austrian army, numerous and determined but worn down by weeks of intense campaigning. On the other, the French, smaller in number but highly motivated, and led by a general who always seemed one step ahead. The next few hours would be decisive, both for control of the campaign in Italy and for Napoleon's political fate. The early morning hours of August 5th brought a tense silence over the field of Castiglione. Troops on both sides were on high alert, waiting for the first sign of attack. The sound of marching footsteps over dry ground echoed in the distance, signaling the advance of the Austrian troops under Wurmser's command. In response, Napoleon gave the order to ready the heavy artillery, strategically positioned to strike the enemy line as soon as the battle began. The Austrian attack commenced with a direct advance on the center of the French position. Wurmser hoped that the strength of a frontal assault could quickly break through the defenses, but Napoleon was prepared. He ordered the French troops to retreat in an organized manner, creating a false sense of progress for the Austrians. This tactic lured the enemy troops into a more exposed position, where the French artillery was ready to unleash a devastating barrage. As the gunfire intensified, Napoleon identified a weakness on the Austrian left flank. Seeing the opportunity, he immediately dispatched reinforcements, led by General Augereau, to execute a flanking maneuver. A risky move, but one that could completely destabilize Wurmser's line. The surprise attack caught the Austrians off guard, causing confusion and forcing Wurmser's troops into a hasty reorganization. With the Austrian flank weakened, Napoleon launched his main offensive, ordering a full assault by the French forces. Soldiers charged with bayonets in hand, while the sound of cannons roared in the background. The heat of hand-to-hand combat and the smoke of gunfire created a chaotic scene where morale and leadership played a crucial role. Napoleon was at the center of the action, giving direct orders and encouraging his men to advance, maintaining high motivation despite the challenges. The French offensive was overwhelming. The Austrians, now fragmented and lacking cohesive leadership, began a disorganized retreat. Wurmser attempted to regroup his forces, but it was too late. The front line was breached, and a retreat became inevitable. Napoleon seized the opportunity to pursue the fleeing army, ensuring the Austrians had no time to regroup and setting the stage for a decisive victory. The battle lasted several hours, but as the sun set over the field of Castiglione, it was clear that the French had triumphed. Napoleon's victory was complete, and the Austrian army was in full retreat, leaving behind a battlefield marked by bravery and the relentless tactics of a young general who would go on to reshape the destiny of Europe. The French victory at Castiglione rapidly shifted the course of the Italian campaign. For Napoleon, the battle represented far more than just a military success. It was a demonstration of his maneuvering skills and strategic leadership on one of Europe's most challenging battlefields. Immediately after the battle, Napoleon ordered a relentless pursuit of the Austrian forces, maintaining pressure and preventing any attempt by Wurmser to regroup. The hasty retreat of the Austrian forces left northern Italy almost entirely unprotected. The Austrian garrisons, already worn down by the campaign, now faced the possibility of isolation or siege. Napoleon seized the opportunity to solidify French control in the region, occupying strategic cities and securing access to essential supplies for the remainder of the campaign. The defeat at Castiglione also had a profound impact on the First Coalition. Austrian morale plummeted, and the Austrian command began to question the feasibility of continuing the campaign in Italy. News of the victory spread rapidly, strengthening France's diplomatic position and causing distrust among the coalition members, who started to diverge over future strategies. In Paris, the victory at Castiglione was met with great enthusiasm. The Directory, which governed revolutionary France at the time, saw Napoleon as a national hero. His campaign successes not only secured strategic territories, but also bolstered the legitimacy of the revolutionary regime. Napoleon, in turn, used the victory to enhance his own image and political ambitions, establishing himself as the Republic's most effective general and beginning to shape his persona as the nation's savior. For Napoleon, the Battle of Castiglione was a validation of his theories of warfare and his leadership style. He believed that speed, surprise, and the ability to adapt quickly were fundamental to winning modern wars. He later wrote that at Castiglione, victory was not merely a matter of strength, but of intelligence and resolve, reinforcing the importance of both political and military willpower in warfare. The Battle of Castiglione marked a crucial turning point in the Italian campaign, solidifying Napoleon's position as the undisputed commander of French forces in the region. From this moment on, the path was clear for a series of victories that would lead Napoleon to control much of Italy and establish himself as a central figure in European politics. The victory at Castiglione was not just another battlefield achievement, but a milestone in the rise of Napoleon Bonaparte. It marked the beginning of a new phase in the Italian campaign, where Napoleon not only consolidated military control of the region, but also began to establish a broader political and strategic dominance. The success at Castiglione paved the way for a series of successful campaigns, including the battles of Bassano, Arcole, and Rivoli, which would solidify French control in northern Italy by the end of 1797. Beyond redefining the Italian battlefield, the victory at Castiglione had broader strategic implications. With the Austrian retreat, the First Coalition suffered a severe blow, allowing France to gain time and space to strengthen its position in Europe. Napoleon used the victories in Italy as leverage to negotiate favorable terms at the Treaty of Campo Formio in 1797, consolidating conquered territories and redefining the balance of power in Europe. Castiglione was not only a testament to Napoleon's military genius, but also to his ability to use battlefield victories to advance his political capital. His successes on the battlefield increased his popularity and influence in France, paving the way for his rise to power. Castiglione, therefore, was not just a military triumph, but a milestone that helped shape Napoleon as an ambitious leader and a far-sighted political strategist. The Battle of Castiglione represents more than just a chapter in the French Revolutionary Wars. It symbolizes the beginning of Napoleon's emergence as one of the most influential military leaders in modern history. His tactical innovations, combined with his ability to exploit the political moment, not only brought victories for France, but also transformed the very concept of military leadership in Europe. Castiglione was, in many ways, the beginning of an empire built with intelligence, audacity, and above all, an unyielding will to win. Thus, the Battle of Castiglione is not merely a victory on a campaign map. It represents Napoleon's strategic vision and his relentless desire to shape the fate of Europe. For Napoleon, Castiglione was not the end, but just the beginning of a long journey that would lead to even more significant battles and the establishment of an empire that would alter the course of history. Before we wrap up, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss upcoming episodes about Napoleon's campaigns and other key events in ancient history. Your subscription is essential to keep this project alive and continue exploring the legacy of the great leaders of the past together.